When we say these things to ourselves or to other people to help them understand a little bit more about ourselves, we're just excusing away the opportunity for healing. Welcome back, guys, to the Butterfly Season podcast. I am here today to chat with you guys about sneaky links. And the links are the lies that we tell ourselves that are like linking us to and keeping us like shackled to old behaviors, old patterns, and all the things. And what that might look like for you is, I will say this, I often hear my friends say this, like, I'm just too controlling. Like I can't relinquish control. And sometimes it's in a joking way. Like we're never like, oh, that's a flaw. You're just like, oh, I get it, girl. Like, you love to have your stuff the way you want it. Or, I'm too reactive, or like, all of the things. I'm X, Y, or Z, you name it. And if you're listening right now and you're like, I'm not entirely sure like what sneaky link, what lie it is that I tell myself, just listen and things might come up for you. But I do want to unpack them a little bit, because while those might be true, you might be controlling, you might be reactive, you might be a perfectionist, you might be a people pleaser, whatever it is, they might be true. But when we say these things to ourselves or to other people to help them understand a little bit more about ourselves, we're just excusing away the opportunity for healing. And what healing might look like, or questions you might ask yourself, is like, okay, well, why do I feel the need to control so much? Like, what am I trying to protect myself from when I am being super controlling? And what areas has like controlling tendencies actually prevented me from like moving the needle forward or from growing? And whatever it is, it may not be controlling for you, but it might be people pleasing or any of those things, perfectionism. And these like lies that we tell ourselves, like, yes, we are these things, but the lie is that it's okay. It's just a part of who we are, because it's likely a learned behavior to protect yourself from something. So it brought me to this question, like, okay, well, if we can't be honest with ourselves, how can we expect other people to be honest with us, especially people that we confide in? I was in a situation where I was doing something that didn't serve me, but at the time, my like sneaky link, my lie that I was telling myself was, okay, well, I just need to get through this part and then I can be done with it, while like also keeping the same toxic behaviors, right? If I ignore it, it'll go away. If I work harder, it'll get better. If I assume more responsibility than what's actually appropriate for me, maybe it'll get better. But literally, like, these were all of the lies that I was telling myself. And because I just like I was fearful to actually dig deeper on why I was telling myself these lies to pacify me, to keep me in a situation that I shouldn't have been in. I think because I was fearful of like what the outcome would be on the other side, the unknown. And life ended up kind of taking me out of that situation for me before I could even really take action around it. And when I was confiding in my friends around this process, and even just people who were asking me like, oh, what's changed? I noticed that you're not doing this anymore. And I like, had a brief elevator pitch of an explanation, and they're like, oh yeah, like I seen that. I noticed those things I had seen. And I was just like, why the hell would no one tell me? Like, if everybody saw it, why would nobody like notify me? Like, hey girl, just FYI, this is what I'm seeing. And when I dug a little bit deeper, I was just like, okay, well, I know that there was a part of me that was lying to myself about the gravity of the situation. And if I can't be honest with myself, like, how can I expect people to be honest with me? And some of you might be listening and say, well, like, people should be good friends and tell you, about yourself. And while I do think that's true, I have an episode on like radical honesty, and there's another episode with Lizzie Hofer where we talk about why it's important to be honest with people, even if it's super uncomfortable. And I do believe that to be true. I believe that both things are true, but I'm really just talking about like me and you for a second, not anyone else that we don't have control over. With respect to this, I know I was lying to myself subconsciously. And I reflected back and I was like, okay, well, if people were to have told me the truth, every single person that told me they had seen it, would I be in a position to receive? People might have been more reluctant to be honest with me because of the fear that their words might fall on deaf ears, because clearly this is like how I'm seeing it currently at this time. But then also even like the emotional labor of it all, right? Like being honest with somebody who's not honest with themselves can feel emotionally taxing, and that might not be something that somebody wants to take on. And then also they might avoid it because they might be trying to protect the relationship, or they might not feel like it's their place, right? And I know we've all felt that way before. I know that there's definitely circumstances where I've seen things happening and I'm like, okay, well, I can see a pattern here. And even though sometimes you can see patterns in things, it doesn't mean that the outcome is always going to be matter of fact or necessarily true. I've said this before on the podcast, I'm a projector. So I can see things like very bird's eye view and see, okay, if this, then likely this. And there are times where I just won't say anything. And, I don't even think I've pinpointed why. And it could be some of those lists of things that I just rattled off as to why maybe somebody wouldn't have told me unsolicited or given me unsolicited advice. And so as I was reflecting back on like whether or not it was anyone else's responsibility to tell me, although I did feel like, why the hell would nobody tell me if they saw it? I did have some grace because I do feel like it's all medicine, right? Like it's all for your good. So I truly believe that for my journey, I was supposed to go through what I went through in that way to be more honest with myself, to like understand my subconscious thoughts, to understand feelings in my body and what my mind is telling me and taking action around that, as opposed to pacifying that with like a sneaky link of a lie that's keeping me either playing small, not doing the right thing, working with the wrong people. And I have found a level of grace for myself with that. And so what I want you guys to, take a little bit of inventory for yourself is like, okay, ask yourself, where am I lying to myself? Is it in my relationship? Is it in my friendships? Is it familially? Is it with what I'm doing for a profession? Like, is it when you're working out, right? Like I was just talking with my mom the other day and she does like HIIT workouts. I'm blanking on the name of them. It's like a really popular one, like a old school popular one. Dang it. Anyway, so she does these like HIIT workout videos, remember like workout DVDs and like videos. And so there's like a medium level one and a hard one. And she's been doing these for like ever, but she won't, up until recently, she wasn't doing the hard one because a sneaky link of a lie that she told herself was that like she couldn't really do hard things. And it wasn't until recently that she's like, no, like I can, like, that's just a story that I was telling myself. Like I actually can do hard things. I do hard things. And so that was just a lie. And as I think about it, like I know that she can do hard things. I feel like I've seen her do harder things in that workout, but I never told her you can do the hard one. So like there's literally a perfect example of tables kind of being turned and me not being honest with somebody who I don't think is being honest with themselves. We just kind of just, let them be. And that was her journey to go on, albeit this is like a small example and not a completely severe example, but now she's doing the harder exercise and she's like, I feel like I healed that part of me that thought I couldn't do hard things. And so if you're capable of lying to yourself, other people are capable of lying to you about that same thing. And it might be helpful to take a little bit of inventory on where in your life are these sneaky links keeping you linked to an older version of you that maybe feels comfortable, feels like familiar and usual, but is like no longer serving you in this next season of life. That removing these links will actually propel your growth, push you into a butterfly season, if you will, maybe take you out of a cocoon season. So tell me if this resonates with you. Comment on YouTube if you're watching, or take a screenshot, post it on Instagram in your stories, tag me. I'm curious if you guys have felt this way. Now that I've noticed this, I've noticed more conversations with people where I feel like they might be lying to themselves, and I've been working through how can you beautifully be honest with somebody and leave them better than how you left them. I really encourage you to listen to the episode with Lizzie Hofer. I think it's maybe episode 3 in the podcast, but she speaks about it so eloquently. And I really admire that trait in people when they can take a little bit of radical candor with someone they love. So that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for hanging with me. And until next time.